Wow. Okay. I know I just said this last episode might be my favorite episode, but like, this episode might be my favorite episode? What's happening? Stop. These are all getting better. Is episode 9 gonna blow my mind?
What if? Break it down for me.
All right, friends, I just watched, and it's time for us to talk about Marvel What If Season 2, Episode 8. What if the Avengers assembled in 1602? Well, to answer that question, it would be amazing. This was not like the 1602 in the comics. It was not like it at all. But I still loved it. I liked that it was different. There was no witch breed, none of that stuff. 1602 in the comics, by the way, if you haven't read the 1602 sort of alternate universe, like comic books, they're really good. And famously, Neil Gaiman actually basically created 1602 for Marvel. I don't know why I'm still wearing this headset. I'm not listening to anything right now. I'm going to take this off. Sorry, I just watched the episode with people on my OF community. We just did a watch along party. It was so fun, and I'm still wearing my headset, but I digress. But yeah, if you didn't know, Neil Gaiman basically created 1602 for Marvel to pay for a lawsuit that he had against Todd McFarlane on who actually owned the rights to Angela, which is a character that he created when he was writing for Spawn for Todd. And also there was issues with him like not being properly compensated. It's a whole thing. You can look it up and look into it, but yeah. And he actually dedicated it to Todd, and he said basically that it was for him. I believe the quote is like, to Todd, who like made it necessary. So we wouldn't have 1602 if not for that beef, which I kind of just love in terms of comic book history and think is just a weird reason that now we have 1602. But 1602 is great. It is a really cool alternate world, probably one of my favorites, and also just in terms of the design for a lot of the characters, it's really amazing. And we do get to see this here incorporated, which I loved. So, what made this a standout episode for me? Well, like I said, it was something that I was already excited for going in, so there was prior hype, and the episode delivered on the hype for me. I wanted to see the 1602 world. I wanted to see sort of a bit of a fresh take on it. We got both of those things. It was really fun, and I think the other amazing part of this episode is so many people came back to do voices. Even Elizabeth Olsen came back to voice Wanda, which I love. She didn't get as much to do as I would have liked. I kind of was hoping she was going to be a little bit more like featured when I saw her name as one of like the top billed. And also just when they mentioned, you know, that Scarlet Witch had gotten them to grab Peggy from the alternate world to bring her in so that she could help them out. I was really hoping Scarlet Witch was going to be doing a bit more. She still did some really impressive stuff, but I just mean there wasn't a lot of dialogue that happened with her. She only had a few things that she said. Still, it was really nice to see Elizabeth Olsen come back. It was amazing having Paul Rudd in this episode and sort of seeing Steve as like the Robin Hood figure with like his merry band, which of course included Sebastian Stan as Buck Barnes and Paul Rudd as basically this world's Ant-Man. And I loved how there was still Yellow Jacket, and Yellow Jacket was like the king's army, and how Hela was the queen because she was the firstborn of Odin, which then would passed on to Thor after she went missing. I'm also wondering where she went. Like, where were these riffs going? Were they just riffs? Do they lead anywhere? I have a lot of questions about that. But overall, I would say for about a 30-minute episode, just shy of 30 minutes, if we're just talking about like the watch time of the episode and not the credits as well, I would say this episode is really, really good and really strong. There isn't a lot of things that made me go like, oh, like that isn't really, like, I guess you've got to rush it. Most of it was just very compelling, felt very true to the characters, felt very true to the situation, and it was really cool to see what these characters would be like were they back in the 1602 time period. And I feel like you can tell that Jon Favreau had a lot of fun voicing Happy in this world and getting to say some of this dialogue, which is just ridiculous. Also, who wrote this episode? Let's see, I really liked it because I'm looking up the writer. Who wrote Marvel What If Episode 8? AC Bradley and Ryan Little. I guess because they're using AC Bradley's version of Shakespeare. And Ryan Little. Sometimes finding people online and what they do is challenging. So I think it's this Ryan Little, but I can't tell. Ryan Little wrote the What If episode, What If Kahori Reshaped the World? He co-wrote the What If episode, What If the Avengers Assembled in 1602 with AC Bradley. He also was a production assistant on Agent Carter, Daredevil, and Jessica Jones, an assistant to executive producer on Iron Fist, a writer's assistant on Inhumans, a script coordinator on Runaways and What If, and a story editor on I Am Groot. Okay, so AC Bradley is not who I thought. AC Bradley is this lady, and she's the head writer and executive producer for the first and second season of What If. Well, AC Bradley and Ryan Little, you're knocking it out of the park with this episode. It is so fun. It's so just giving me life, giving me nostalgia, giving me some comics love. It's just so many things, I think, is why I like it. It's all these things sort of coming together. Also, obviously, Captain Carter's kind of the main character of this episode, which just adds to it. It's just really fun. You can tell that Chris Hemsworth is probably having the most fun he's had all season. Like, this was the one episode that he was just like, finally, I'm gonna get to say lines that are like matter and are really exciting, as opposed to just kind of having these one-liners. You can tell everyone in this episode that lended a voice is very hyped about being in the episode. So it was cool to see, yeah, the people's roles. It was cool to just hear these voices really come to life. And that fight scene at the end was also amazing. It was just so entertaining, and I literally laughed out loud. There were moments when I didn't know what was gonna happen. The other thing that I like is because I know 1602 really well, I kind of figured like I might kind of know where we're going, especially if, you know, Angela was here or some of the other characters that I'm familiar with and how they're depicted in 1602 in the comics. But I really like that they did something different, and that when they were talking about, you know, like who's the Forerunner, we have to find the Forerunner and send them back. The solution to this and what the actual problem was, I was not expecting. So it was really cool that this is also kind of based on a what if scenario of, you know, the Infinity War. And what if basically Steve, when he was fighting against Thanos, like grazed the time stone or busted the time stone a little bit, and in doing that created 1602. It's also really cool that Steve is still kind of the catalyst for 1602, which is also similar in the comics, as he's the one that gets kind of sent back in time and creates this time period where the heroes come sort of earlier in Earth's timeline. They sort of come together, the Avengers. That was really cool to see sort of that parallel, but once again, so different. I think that's really been the strength for me in this entire season, and something that just this episode does really well is, like I have said before in other reviews, this idea of these parallels between stories that we know that are established in the canon and doing something different. Like, what if we kind of do the same thing, but it's a completely different take on it, so it feels fresh, but it just feels really smart for the people that already know those things. And if you don't know those things, it doesn't take away from the story, I think, at all. It's really hard as we get more continuity to make it so that anyone can jump in. And the thing that I like about What If, and especially this episode, is I do feel like it's very accessible for anyone, no matter where you're at with your Marvel, MCU, or comic book knowledge. Like, anyone can jump into What If season 2 or season 1 and just have a fun time. You just need to know like a little bit of stuff. Like, basically you just need to know the bare minimum to jump into these, I think, and enjoy them. So I think they're really accessible. I will say I was kind of sad there was no Spider-Man. Spider-Man's in 1602. Spider-Man wasn't here. And I feel like there's been pretty much, I mean, there hasn't been. I don't think we've had any Spider-Man this season. A little disappointing. So hopefully we get some Spider-Man in the last episode, because we got one left. Well, friends, those are my thoughts on What If the Avengers Assembled in 1602. Overall, delighted. Yeah, I think it might take my top spot for favorite episode, which would mean then episode 7 is now second, with Hela becoming the goddess of life. And then I don't even know. And then I guess episode 2 with my 80s Avengers. And then maybe Kahori? I don't know. It's going to be hard for me to rank these. I think I'm going to do a ranking at the end between season 2 and season 1 and try to rank all the episodes. And these are going to be some hard choices, friends, because there's so many great episodes. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this review. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you for the final episode review, and then a season 2 recap, and then we'll organize all of these and rank them. Oh, it's going to be hard. Okay. Thanks for watching. Till next time, stay nerdy.